Good evening. Let me introduce myself. I am Thomas from Orient Black Swan. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome all of you to this webinar on blockchain and its real-life applications. As all of you are aware, blockchain is an emerging technology and it has its application in almost all the field of our life, be it education, be it finance, be it supply chain, be it manufacturing. So in almost all the areas, we have seen blockchain having its applications. So our eminent panelists will try to address all these aspects of blockchain within this 2-hour session. We have 4 distinguished guests on the panel. So let me introduce them one by one. This webinar will be moderated by Dr. Chandramouli Subramanian. He is the Associate Director of Cognizant Technology Solutions, Chennai. He will give us a brief overview about the blockchain. Welcome, Dr. Chandramouli. Followed by him, Abhilash K. Aravind will talk about the various types of blockchain. He is a solution architect in 6D Technologies. Welcome, Abhilash.
Right. Thank you, Thomas.
Now we have Asha A. George. She is a blockchain and certified cryptocurrency professional. She is from Webat Technologies. She will speak about the applications of blockchain in the field of finance and education. She is joining us from Dubai. Welcome, Asha.
Thank you. Good to be here, Thomas.
Now we have Meena Karthikeyan. She is an enterprise solution consultant. She is the former vice president of Cognizant Technology. She will speak about the applications of blockchain in the field of healthcare, real estate, and supply chain. Please join me in welcoming Meena.
Thank you.
Hello, Meena.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you. Now I take this opportunity to welcome all the participants. All the participants can see a Q&A box on the screen. They can post their questions there. Our panelists will answer all these questions during the course of the webinar. So apart from this, our panelists will pick and choose some select questions to be debated in the last 30 minutes of the webinar. So with this, I request Dr. Chandramouli to start his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Hope you are able to see the screen, Thomas.
Yes, sir, we can.
Yeah. Thank you all for joining this session. So I'll be first talking about a few introduction about the Bitcoin, and myself and Abhilash will be talking about the introduction aspects of Bitcoin. I mean, in particularly the blockchain technologies and other things. And then we'll be handing over to Asha and Meena for explaining the blockchain aspects. So first, I would like to start with a disclaimer, and of course, we'll be talking about the Bitcoin, but this is not a Bitcoin introduction. We'll be now talking about more on the blockchain technology and its application. As you know, right, the blockchain technology is getting very famous because of the introduction of the Bitcoin in the era. And today, there are various flavors of blockchain available in the market. Like to put it few, Ethereum is one of the blockchain that is getting very famous, and Hyperledger. Like this, there are a lot of blockchain flavors that is getting famous. So we will be talking and dwelling in details about those technologies. So when you talk about brief history of blockchain, very recently, just 12 years before, on October 31st, 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto released a paper called as peer-to-peer electronic cash digital. There he was actually introducing the concept of P2P, and he was also talking about how it can be used for blockchain and Bitcoin. That actually lays the foundation of the blockchain. So as we already discussed, the Ethereum and blockchain, Hyperledger are also getting very famous. They are all examples of offshoot of the original blockchain technology. So now I would like to talk about a little bit on the centralized network. So as you know, right, in any centralized network, we have a servers and we have a clients, right? Server is nothing but a central server which will have all the authority, and all the clients are called as a nodes. The central server will control all the nodes. The complete authority lies with the central server. Even they can also allow to duplicate the data. They can add, modify, delete everything, but they can also delegate some work to the node. This is how the typical centralized network works on it. In fact, the internet is first not drawn based only on this centralized network principle, right? Any failure at the central node, right? This is what typically we as an engineer need to look at it. Since we have only one central node, if it fails, the entire nodes fails, right? All the clients, the entire network actually fails because the central server rules the entire nodes, and they also set the rules how the nodes needs to operate. In a typical client server methodology, how the client needs to operate is completely determined by the central server or central authority. As you move on, when you move from the centralized server network, we are moving to a decentralized network later on. A decentralized network is nothing but, right, we have a set of decentralized server, meaning we have a decentralized network of authority. So it is not one authority, we have a multiple authority. That is why it is called decentralized network. But however, blockchain is actually working on next technology that is called as you all know, that is called as P2P network, right? In a P2P network, nothing but a point-to-point network where every node is connected with each and every node, and everybody acts as a server and everybody acts as a client also. It is not, there is no one single authority or central ministry to take care of the nodes, or no, the entire laws is governed by all the people. That is why we go for something called a consensus mechanism. So the decision is taken consensual way in a P2P network. This lays the foundation of the blockchain network. So the P2P is the technology behind which the blockchain completely rules around. Now, when you go to a blockchain, we need to understand how the ledger usually works. So when you go to a bank and doing a transaction, or when you go to any shops to do the transaction, there are ledgers maintained. So we as a customer maintains one ledger, the shops maintains the ledger, right? Even the bank maintains a ledger. So there are duplications. But what happens while the ledgers are getting maintained? Is it being maintained consistently? That is a question mark, right? The transaction that happened can be tampered by anybody on the ledger, right? We also do some adjustments here and there, right? Only for the higher transaction, we usually maintain in a ledger, right? In our home, right? But in the bank, actually, they maintain all the transactions and so on, right? The bank, when you go to the shop, they maintain their own ledgers in a different way in order to accommodate the laws, rules, and all. So this is a problem while you're going with the ledger. How we are combining the ledger in a distributed environment, that is called as distributed ledger. So first we discuss about distributed network. Now you see that there is a green color. So that is we calling it as a ledger, and ledgers are completely decentralized and distributed, and that is exactly called as distributed ledger. Very simple term, right? So actually the distributed ledgers can be public or private. So when I talk about the private, in the internet also we have a intranet and internet. Yeah, internet is public and internet is based on the private, right? So similar way here also it can be public as well as a private actually. And the thing is the users are anonymous, can be anonymous, or they need not be anonymous also. So we have an entire distributed ledger here that helps us the blockchain. In the case of anonymous structure, what happened actually, everybody is having the copy. So but whereas in the case of the other thing, some permission needs to be maintained, that we call it as a private blockchain. So the complete control lies with a few set of people in a case of a private blockchain. In a case of a public blockchain, right, everybody has the control and complete consensus is with all the nodes. That's how the distributed ledgers are. Yeah. So when you move further, now what is a blockchain? And before that, actually, we need to understand the distributed ledger technology. Now we are combining the ledger concepts with the distributed concepts, that is called as distributed ledger technology. So blockchain is nothing but very simple term. It is a distributed ledger in a decentralized way, right? And here the transactions refers to any digital data. So previously when you talk about the ledger, we talk about only the transactions, right? particularly the currency transaction. But when it comes to the blockchain, the advantages is, yes, it is a ledger, but within the ledger, we can keep any data, including text, pictures, audio files, or whatever we want. And yes, this data is also distributed to all parties across all the locations, right? And all parties have a simultaneous access to all the records. This is the beauty of the blockchain, this distributed ledger. So that's how the blockchain technology got evolved actually. So simply put it, blockchain can be considered as a distributed ledger that sits over the internet for recording all the transactions, right? That's how it is. And all the transaction can also be verifiable record set of information. Even though now it is being maintained with everybody can verify the records, and it is a tamper proof also using the blockchain technology. So even the non-trusting parties also can transact with each other. For example, when you talk about the centralized, we need to depend on the centralized centralized data or node, right? But here, even if you are non-trusting parties also can transact very easily, and there is no intermediary at all. That's the main advantages of a blockchain, and that is what we call it as a blockchain. So it is distributed, and it's a replicated peer-to-peer, and it is tamper resistant, and it can only be added. This is also very important. So once you create a block, so in a blockchain, right, it's a chain of blocks. Very simply, blocks are nothing but the first instant of the block may be called as Genesis block. It consists of a ledger in general. We'll discuss about what are the contents of the block later, but any block cannot be tampered very easily. It is a tamper resistant, and blocks can also be added. Even if you want to modify a block, I need to add a new block, right? So that's what is blockchain simply is all about. Now, one more thing which I would like to explain, the difference between a Bitcoin and blockchain. So I also got a lot of question on this actually. What is it? Because the blockchain became a famous because of the Bitcoin. So it's similar to, right, in when you talk about the agile terminologies, right? People call the Scrum methodology as an agile, because agile became famous because of the Scrum. Later point of time, there are a lot of other methods got added. Similar to over here, blockchain became famous because of the Bitcoin, but we need to understand Bitcoin is different from blockchain, right? Simply put it, Bitcoin is some cryptocurrency, whereas the blockchain is the technology behind the that particular cryptocurrency. And there can be a number of other cryptocurrencies also possible on the blockchain technology, because blockchain is simply a technology, right? And in the case of Bitcoin, why we created a Bitcoin, the purpose is to remove the intermediaries. That is the purpose of the Bitcoin. Whereas the purpose of the Bitcoin blockchain is to create a centralized environment for transaction, right? And of course, on the blockchain, we have a lot of applications are there possible to write, and Bitcoin is only the particular currency transaction only is possible, right? And there is a high degree of anonymity is there with the Bitcoin, and whereas the blockchain is considered, it's highly transparent. So the net blockchain is different and Bitcoin is different. When you talk about the blockchain in a typical environment, what happened while you are doing a transaction, right? Party A does some transaction with party B, let's say. He sends some $100, let's say, and the record is being maintained at the auditor level, because we go with the auditor, and our record is also maintained as a bank, assuming that my transaction happens through a checks or the other thing. So banks also getting my record. So similar kind of record in a different way is maintained at multiple locations. Whereas when you go for a Bitcoin, it is a digitally signed and encrypted transaction, right? It is being common across all the parties involved, right? And that is the main advantages of going with the blockchain. So as we already discussed, blockchain is nothing but a chain of blocks. So we need to understand what is inside the block. So one thing which you already discussed, that a block consists of the transaction, but it also has the many other aspects in order to maintain the chain, right? The first thing is it has a hash of the block. We'll discuss soon now what is hash of the block. Identification of the block. So currently it is a block number, right? Even though that is not the case. So the block number is maintained, and the whole block also has a hash of the previous block. You know, it is a chain, right? I need to know what happens, what is the particular block just before this block. So I have the hash of the previous block, and I also timestamp when the particular block got created, And we also have a purpose called nonce. Nonce is nothing but a random number that is very helpful for us to create a kind of a consensus mechanism. We'll also discuss about it. And it also has a very important component called as a Merkle root. Merkle root is nothing but a hash of all the hashes that happens already before, right? That is called as Merkle root. The roots of the roots is called as Merkle root. And of course, the last but not the least, the transaction data. Or in order to create a block, inside the block, we not only just have a transaction, we also have these are all the very basic building blocks of the block, I will call, right? Without this, we cannot create a block. So now as we move on, we need to talk about the block structure. So block structure is nothing but, as we discussed, we have a block number, previous block's hash, timestamp, nonce and Merkle root, and it is also attached to one by one, right? It is technically talking, it's a kind of a linked in kind of structure, right? This is what is called as a block structure. So when we move on, this is nothing but a hashing algorithm. So hashing is nothing but a 64 character output. We have something called SHA 256 algorithm, right? So as you know what is algorithm, right? We can give anything as an input. Text can be given as an input, right? An object can be given as an input, class can be given, string can be given, integer can be given as an input. The output will be this 64 unique character. So I have displayed some of the hashing results actually. If you look into the second, third, and fourth, right? I just changed the input very slightly. The world is a balloon, right? I don't know how many of you can notice what is that is given as in the second and third one. I removed only the last character, right? The world is a balloon without any any other special character. And the fourth one I gave, the world is a balloon, right? The capital T, I changed it to small t. But you see the results, right? So completely unique set of hash is given. That is what the main input for any blocks. So using this, I can easily identify the block. And another thing is, since we cannot predict the input based on the output. For example, right, it is let's just look into the facing recognition, right? So how the face you will look like, or the based on your face, I cannot recognize your full face or the thumb impression, right? So based on the thumb impression, it is very difficult for you to identify the person, how the person will look like. But even though the thumb impression is nothing but the unique. Similar to that one here, yes, we get the output. So based on the input, output varies. But based on the output, can we predict the input? The answer is no. So this output is what we will be putting into the blockchain, right? So a block in particular. So it's very difficult to kind of information that is there within. That's why the hashing algorithm is being used very widely inside the blocks, inside a blockchain. Now, hashing, is it only one hash we are using it? The answer is no. I'm not just using in the blockchain concept is not just creating a hash only based on the one input. See that it is created based on the previous of the hash of the previous block. Number one, I take it. And this particular, the entire block is given as an input. I also created a nonce. Nonce is nothing but a random number. And thereby, I creating another hash is nothing but the 64 unique character that I want to name this particular block, new block, based on this, whatever 000 557, right? So based on this, I will name this block. That is called as hash mapping. So Merkle root, as we discussed about it, all the transactions, right? So each and every transaction is bundled with other transaction, and that Merkle root is also being stored in the block. So I have a name for this block, and I also have all the details of the previous transaction in that particular block. Yeah, that is called as Merkle root. And what are the basic informations, right? What are the benefits of the blockchain? Number one, it saves a lot of time, right? Any transaction, no, even if you go to the bank or doing any transaction of the check, right? So we can do it in a fraction of seconds in our, but even if it is delayed in a few minutes, we can do all the services and other things. It actually removes a lot of cost, reduces a lot of cost, particularly the intermediate cost, right? And overhead cost, etc., can be easily avoided. And it also reduces a lot of risk, right? And there is a complete transparency and dependency is there in the blockchain. So these are all the few benefits of using the blockchain. And the main benefits of the blockchain is it avoids double spending. Of course, you all know what is double spending, right? Supposing I have a digital currency, assume right? I can give 100 transaction to a person, let's say that Anne, and digitally I can duplicate the data, right? Easily possible. I can give it to another person, let's say that Asha, right? So Joe can give the same currency, digital currency in particular, I'm talking about to Anne as well as to Asha. So that can be easily avoided using the blockchain. So how we can avoid it? So in the blockchain, actually, we have a mechanism. It's nothing but another software program called as a consensus. So assuming that we have n number of nodes, all the nodes are almost more than 50% of the node need to come to a consensus that this particular transaction or this particular block is valid. Of course, it's nothing but it's also a software. We have a various set of consensus algorithms written, right? And the particular problem needs to be solved in order to find a solution. For example, I would like to add a block, right? I need to solve a particular problem and I need to find out the solution. I need to float the solution to all other nodes, right? If it is being agreed, then I will have this consensus. So one of the very famous consensus mechanism is called as proof of work. What is proof of work? Is very simple. I have again the problem. The problem is nothing but I need to create a hash of caches, and there is a condition set usually. My hash value should be lesser than the previous set hash value. Meaning, previously, the center there will be some hash, right? Let's say 5 zeros, 8, or no triple zero. It's a 64 character in between, and I need to get a hash which is lesser than that hash. If I'm able to get it, then I can transport. I can actually, send all my values, all the blocks to all the other nodes. Then that is called as proof of work consensus. So I send the work itself, the problem solving itself, as a proof. That is why it is called as proof of work. Another consensus mechanism is there, very simple. That's called as proof of elapsed time. For example, right? Let's say that at a particular point of time, 5 nodes or 5 blocks are being created with 5 different people. A timer is set for all the people, 5 people, and is randomly set. Let's say 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a random number, and whoever get the latest, smallest number, yeah, they will have the authority to create that particular block. Let's say 5 people goes on a transaction in a block, right? Only the first person gets a 2-second timeline, right? And second person is get more than 2 seconds, yeah, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, like that. Now, whoever got the 2 seconds timeline, and once the 2 seconds get elapsed, and he can go and add that, he is being permitted to add his block to the blockchain. That is called as proof of elapsed time. So based on the elapsed time, the blocks are getting added. The third one is proof of stake. Here is very important. Why we are going for a consensus? Number one is it's not so easy. If you let it easy, right? Anybody can go and create a block and add it to the blockchain, right? So that is not the purpose. We want to create a mechanism in such a way that it is difficult, very difficult in order to add a block, but at the time very easy to just to prove it out whether the added block is correct block or not, right? So in the proof of stake, who is having a highest number of stake? Let's say that I have a Bitcoin in a Bitcoin network. My Bitcoin worth is somewhat higher, right? I will have a stake on who can go for the next. So if I add a block, I can easily add a block. The underlying principle is if I have a higher stake, right? I don't want to beat the network. I don't want to hack the network because my stake is there. It's similar to a bank, right? Bank will give a preferences where you have a more money, right? If you are a crorepati, if you have more than a crore rupees or more than 10 crore, right? Whoever is having a cash value is more, that will be given a preference, right? They will give some overdraft value. Similar to that one here, based on the stake people are having on the chain, and they will be given a preference to create a new block also. In other way, they need to certify the new block. Yeah, that is called as proof of stake. And the fourth very famous principle is called as delegated proof of stake. In the delegated proof of stake, it's the proof of stake is delegated. I can delegate. For example, I have a highest stake. I can delegate somebody else to add a block, right? So power to choose the delegate is very highest as far as I have it as if I have a stake. So a delegated person, I can delegate somebody, and the delegated person will go and authorize the block, right? That is called as delegated proof of stake. Like this, we have a number of consensus. Based on the consensus, any blocks can be added to the blockchain. And before handing over to Abhilash, I would like to explain one important concept called a smart contract. So far we discussed only transaction are added to the block, right? So we are all IT people, we know any coding also can be added to the block, right? Coding, of course, there are a set of languages are there for writing a blockchain code, but coding in C, C++, let's say, okay, like that can be also be added to the block when a particular conditions are met, right? The code will automatically execute. That is called as smart contract. Yeah, and smart contract is getting executed based on a particular predetermined condition set forward by the code. So there are different types of smart contract. So very recently, right, smart contracting devices also combined, meaning we have a smart contract in the blockchain. I can also execute the IoT, or vice versa also. IoT can go as an input for blockchain. Blockchain output can go as an input for IoT. Those kind of things also very easily possible. And we also have a decentralized autonomous organization, DAO, that is also possible. And even the legal contract started being executed using a smart contract. That's called a smart legal contract. And we also have a distributed application, DApps. I want to distribute particular apps across the network, and that concept is called as distributed application. Like this, we have different types of smart contract possible with the blockchain technology. So this is the value chain of the smart contract, right? We have a predefined contract, some event execute. When the events are met, then it execute, and then finally the legal settlement happens, right? And this screen actually trying to explain what are the different types of blockchain. So may I now invite Mr. Abhilash to explain this. What are the different types of blockchain and how it's being used? Over to you, Abhilash.
Okay, bye. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Chandramali, Dr. Mali. Thanks a lot for the giving the introduction to blockchain. So you have covered a lot of topics. Thanks a lot. I will take it up from here. Meanwhile, am I audible? I hope yes.
Yes, yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. So this is the slide that Molly was talking about when to use a blockchain and what type of blockchain. So if you're clear, there are many things that you can do with blockchain. Like my colleague just explained, there are many things in blockchains: public blockchain, private blockchain, consensus algorithms. Then there are peer-to-peer network, which is how the Bitcoin started. But there are many solutions which can be built on blockchain. Like, for example, I have my own personal blog. That is, I don't do much things, just take my political views. I put it in my blog, or the recipe that I made last weekend. So technically it is feasible to put that in a blog, but really, does it make any sense? Let's try to explore that scenario. So the first question that comes is, do you need to store the state? That is, when an asset like a motorcycle is there, it is having a state in inventory, at showroom, at sold, etc. So that's the state that we're referring. Are we having a scenario that we have to store the state? If the answer is no, you don't need a blockchain straight away. Don't use blockchain for that. Then the question comes is, in the scenario that you're referring, are people allowed to make write into that system? That is, are multiple people allowed to write? If the answer is no, straight away you don't need a blockchain. The existing software systems like writing into a file or into a database is enough. You don't need you don't need blockchain exactly. Move forward. That is, there are state needs to be stored. There are multiple writers. Then let's move to the other point. That is, are there trusted third parties? Trusted third parties are authenticated by government or other sources. If it is there, the answer is yes. Straight away, you don't need a blockchain. So these are the scenarios where you don't. These are the scenarios where you don't need a blockchain. Now, then after this, the question is, are all writers known to you? If it is no, then it is a scenario of a permissionless blockchain. It's a public blockchain, public permissionless blockchain. Moving forward, if the question was, are all writers known? And the answer is yes. Then the next question is, are all writers trusted? If the answer is yes, you don't need a blockchain. The answer is no. Is that a publicly verifiability required? If it is yes, if it can be verified in public, it is going to be a public permission blockchain. If it is no, it's going to be a private permission blockchain. So clearly, the slide may look a little tough for you initially, people who are new to blockchain, but it's not so difficult. So what we're trying to see is, technically speaking, a lot of use cases can be moved to blockchain, but does it really make sense? If the answer to the questions are no, no, and yes, yes for this thing, then you don't need a blockchain. However, there are certain specific scenarios where a blockchain can help. At least, let me think of one example. I hope you have heard of GST network. What if you want to move our system? What if you want to move to the GST network to a blockchain? Okay, guys, to my knowledge, GST is not on blockchain today. So who are the participants in the GST network? It's open to the citizens of India. And can all citizens go and join there? No. People who have their own GST ID, only they can log in there. So this comes to a clear scenario of public. Citizens of India are allowed to use, but it's permissioned. That is, you cannot go and like that. You need to be part of the GST ID, network with an ID. This can be asked once or every year or every 6 months. So that is what that is one example that I tried to say that, okay, let's try to build a network. And if it is yes, then which type of network it is. So the example that I showed was about a public permissioned blockchain. I move forward. If you have questions, please write it. We'll try to answer that later during the webinar. Okay. Right. I hope you can see my screen. So my friend Chandramouli has already spoken about Bitcoin and Ethereum in his introduction. So I wish to continue from there. What I would like to add is both Bitcoin and Ethereum, they are public blockchains. So you could very well ask, okay, hi, yes, we have a Bitcoin already there and an Ethereum built, or both are public blockchains. Why do we exactly need two different public blockchains, which is under open source? Well, so this slide is giving the differences between these two networks. And as I explain these differences, I will try to come up with the reason why we had to come up with Ethereum network, even though we had Bitcoin network. First and foremost, Bitcoin, as my friend Chandramouli explained to you, it was written by Satoshi Nakamoto. Okay, Satoshi Nakamoto is it's little unique, or very unique, because the origin of Satoshi Nakamoto is not known. It can be a person or a group of person. We don't know that. He can be an English or a Korean or a Japanese or even an American or maybe an Indian. We don't know. We don't know about anything about him, his nationality or what he does, etc., etc. But he is very smart. There was a release date of 2009, but my friend Molly said that in 2008 he came up with the paper on P2P electronic cash. That's the paper he wrote. So I wish to bring this in to you. In 2008, he published his first paper, and what he did was he picked up the best practices in industry. That is in distributed ledgers. That is in the linked blocks that can be linked. That software existed long back. Similarly, cryptography also existed long back. Way back, not in 2009, maybe 15 to 20 years back. He put the best practices from these couple of segments of the industry and came up with a solution. So this thing that he did, he didn't invent anything new, but it was purely an innovation. And he didn't invent anything in the sense that cryptography already existed, the linking of blocks already existed, but he ensured that you could build software and a network where you could use this for peer-to-peer transfer of money, where the boundaries of the nations do not matter. For example, I could turn, if I am a member of the network, I could go in, purchase some Bitcoin, and if needed, I can send it to another person who is anywhere. He can be in the same city as I am, or he can be somewhere far off as Australia. It doesn't matter. In the matter of 15 to 20 minutes, the money will be in his wallet. Sorry, it's his account. So that's the peer-to-peer transfer of money. But this slide is about the Bitcoin and its differences and why we had to come up with Ethereum. So as you said, Satoshi Nakamoto is unknown. The founder of Ethereum is a very smart person called Vitalik. Vitalik is well known. You can see Vitalik in YouTube and his lectures, his videos are there. The Bitcoin came up with the primary purpose of currency and coin, cryptocurrency, but with Ethereum has more and more usage. So the reasons that when it is released, those things you can see from the slide. The coin, initially, how did you get BTCs? That is Bitcoin. That is, you have to mine. The person who can mine a block, he was rewarded 50 BTC. However, in Ethereum, it was by initial coin offering. It is very similar to the IPO, or the initial public offering that comes in the market. The important point is, hey, average block time in the average block time in Bitcoin is 10 minutes, while in Ethereum it is 15 seconds. Now, this is where things gets interesting. What happens is, in the Bitcoin world, you need to transfer money from point A, person A, node A to node B, and it allows you to create a block in 10 minutes. However, let's think of the new non-crypto use cases. For example, you want to purchase an airline ticket, and you decided to raise a request for an airline. So your expectation is that we should have an answer instantly. So would you like to wait for 10 minutes? Well, most probably you will not. So Ethereum has improved this a lot to 15 seconds. Keep going down, you can see that the transaction model is BTXO, and transaction model is unspent transaction amount. That's the UTXO, and account. Coin simple, straightforward. The emission rate, that is, initially I said whenever you created a block, you would get 50 BTCs. However, every 4 years, this gets down by half. So first, initially when 2009, those who mined, they got 50 BTCs as reward. 4 years later, it came down to 25, and 4 years later, it came down to 12.5. Right now, if you are able to create a block, that is mining, the process of creating a block is called mining. If you're able to mine, you will be rewarded 12.5 BTCs. And this will be there till next year, till 2021. And after that, it will be reduced by half again. Now, another important point is, sorry, I'm trying to, another important point is the 1 megabytes per block. That's the initial amount of space you are allowed to do. However, in Ethereum, there is no such thing. So you could imagine that if it is just a peer-to-peer cash transfer, you don't need 1 megabytes per block was good enough for the transactions that are popping up in 10 minutes, because you just make one record entry. However, with the new use cases for blockchain, where suppose you have to upload pictures or videos, this 1 megabyte per block does not help you in serving the purpose. So these are the reasons why a team of engineers with Vitalik came up with Ethereum. I'm not sure if this session, I hope I made some sense in making from Bitcoin to Ethereum, though they are both public networks. I would like to speak a few minutes on a private blockchain. Okay, so we all are aware that we are part of this great nation of ours. We have public sector and we have private sector. Private sector is very famous. Example, Tata Motors or Reliance, etc., etc. So just like you remember, if it is a public property, anybody could walk in, but if it's a private property, you cannot go there. If it is so, similarly, if it's a private property, it is owned by a single person or by a group of people, like the Tata Sons. Now, important thing is access to the network. If it is a private network, there is no way we can access the network unless you're part of it or you qualify some criteria which they have set up. This network is not fully public. Initially, if you remember, initially I sort of said about that the blockchain network can be a public blockchain as well as a private blockchain. So so this network is a private network. Very few people can log in, and even if you are able to log in, your roles would be guided by the governance rule. For example, assuming you are an employee of Infosys or Cognizant or CTS or IBM, you can go into that. If you're a database developer, you can do a few things. If you're a project manager, you can do a few more things. If you're a director, you can do lots of things. So the governance rules clearly apply. There are other reasons. There are other features. Advantages of being a private blockchain is the security is much better. How fast can you create a block? The private blockchains are well controlled, well managed networks. You could create a block and the block propagation also is well managed. You can do it much faster. And the good thing is the energy consumption is very low, relatively. Okay, when I say it is low, it is relative to Bitcoin, the energy consumption is lower. That's all. That's more or less what I wanted to speak about private network. That is a private blockchain network. Similarly, if we have okay, this slide is why do we actually need a private blockchain? We have large organizations within our country as well now who are coming up with blockchains. For example, Reliance has a blockchain network. They said publicly they have some 8,000 nodes, but what use cases they are using, it's not shared with the general people. Maybe people who have friends in Reliance can find it out. So why do we need a private blockchain? Because it is used by private organizations or organizations with a specific purpose, or it can be used by a few people who are just hobbyists. Why do we need a private blockchain? Because you can actually control who can use it, who can write, and who can read. Also, the organizations need a solution to ensure that the users are added via a process. Means it's the same thing. That is, you can access the network only if you qualify a few criteria. So that's pretty much the private blockchain. I want to move to the next slide, which is about consortium blockchain. The consortium is nothing but 2 or 3 private players with a common purpose, a very specific common purpose. They gang up together and build a blockchain. The example of this is interbank settlement. Few banks, they take a lot of time for settlements. They said, okay, let's put a blockchain network of ours. And the settlement between the blocks, we can put a network and we will achieve it. That's one example of consortium blockchain. Few banks in India have already done their POCs in blockchain. I remember that Federal Bank, they have a POC done for the overseas remittances. So it seems to be working fine. I hope they will implement it in much wider space. Okay, guys, as we spoke of consortium blockchain, how good they are. They have high scalable features. It has high security, same reasons. Security is as good as the private sector organizations. You are allowed to do only what you by your rank and file. It has lesser cost. The cost of running the network is lower compared to Bitcoin. And there is a governance by selected nodes, and the focus is on business side. I move to the Hyperledger platform. Guys, I hope you have heard of open source networks, open source technologies. And some of the open source solutions are available for enterprises. Like Linux is there. The Red Hat Linux is one of the very famous open source tool, which is available to enterprises with the support. Similarly, the people at Linux Foundation, they came up with an idea that, okay, I want to have a higher blockchain network, which is at enterprise grade. Now, remember, when I say enterprise grade, Ethereum is not enterprise grade solution, though it can be adapted, and it does have enterprise contracts, but it's more or less like a publicly maintained software. And Bitcoin is never an enterprise grade software. It's good for P2P electronic cash transfer, but for the enterprise use cases that's coming up, there are major drawbacks. So Hyperledger platform was born in December 2015, and the approach was to ensure that okay guys, sorry for the delay. Okay, the Hyperledger platform came up in December 2015, and it has an umbrella of softwares under this project. We can quickly grasp through them. So one of the very important thing you need to know is the Hyperledger has initially stated that it will not be issuing its own cryptocurrency. I hope it stays there for a few more years. Let's move to the seeding. Okay, this is what you can see is called as Hyperledger greenhouse family. Guys, just keep a tab on Hyperledger Fabric. This is the most used blockchain within the Hyperledger framework. Fabric is a generic blockchain. It could be used for multiple users. Last week, General Electric, came up with a use case where their own intra-company settlements they did with Hyperledger Fabric. It was of reasonable success. Sorry, I have to speak a little more on Hyperledger Fabric framework. Similarly, the Hyperledger Fabric was contributed by IBM. So the IBM came up with, had their own blockchain network. They came up and they open sourced it under the Linux Foundation, and it now is called as Hyperledger Fabric. Many organizations like T-Systems have picked up this Hyperledger Fabric and built use cases for various solutions. A couple of them were reasonable success. There was a use case for identity management by T-Systems. Similarly, a German car maker was trying to measure the CO2 emissions by their car and put that in the network. Now, coming back to the other members of the framework, then we have Hyperledger Fabric, then we have Sawtooth. Sawtooth is contributed by Intel. It's part of their blockchain, which they have given to Linux Foundation. We are left with Hyperledger Indy Grid. The Grid is the same blockchain, but they have added some data models which are relevant to the supply chain industry. People like Maersk and other supply chain people, they're fond of Grid. They can pick it up. They are planning to pick up the Grid and use for one of their solutions. Excuse me, I'm just trying to move the slide. Okay, so there are a few tools which can help us. The good thing about the Hyperledger family is they give us some tools like Composer, Explorer, Caliper, and Cello. These are the tools that help you to write softwares in very simple mode. You have to make few configurations and make enter, and you could get started with the Hyperledger solutions. Whether it's Fabric, you could use Composer and Explorer to write your own software. That's very much about the Linux Foundation and its Hyperledger project. I would like to move forward. Okay, two softwares. I'm here by touching on two more softwares from the blockchain stack. Ripple. Ripple is an open payment network. Basically, it's a public blockchain where the purpose is cash transfer, digital currency. It is privately held by a company, but it allows people,
Hey, thanks,
people-
Abhilash. Yeah, Chandramouli here. So can you move on to Asha,
Yeah.
please?
Yes,
Yeah.
my last slide. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Ripple. Coda is created by a few group of companies, Amazon and Microsoft. Here onwards, Asha will take care of the remaining sessions. Thank you all. I hope you had a good session.
Hello, thank you, Abhilash. And hello, everyone. Now we have heard about the introductory sessions we have heard till now. So now let's move on to what are the real life applications of blockchain. And for that, let's take the very first one, because as we know that, as it was earlier said, now Bitcoin was actually conceptualized as a peer-to-peer digital online payment system between two parties who trust each other, so that they don't have to rely on the support or authority of middlemen. Then basically by middlemen, we are talking about banks, government, or financial regulators. So it is no surprise if the financial institutions were at first a bit wary. That is, until they...
Asha, I just wanted to interrupt. Have you shared the screen?
Yes.
Okay.
You're
No,
not...
no, we are not able to see one. Can you share the screen? Yeah, now it is visible.
Sorry, excuse me. Okay, since we are just a bit over time, I just want to take it a bit fast here. So
Run the slideshow, man.
hello, are you able to see this?
Yes, yes. Yes, it's fine.
Yeah. Are you seeing something else now? Or the slideshow?
This is not the slideshow, madam. You go to other screen. Yeah. Now we are able to see the slideshow.
One second. Hello?
Yeah, can you share the screen, madam, again?
This is strange.
Okay. So Asha, in the benefit of time, can we ask Meena to share and go ahead and then you can cover it? Is that fine with you?
Yes, I think that is better.
Yeah. Meena, can you please share your screen? And can you proceed, please?
Yeah. Are you able to see the screen?
Yeah, can you run?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Just a minute. 1 minute, 1 minute. Yeah. Okay. So thank you. Asha will talk after I complete on healthcare, real estate, and supply chain management. So you heard from Dr. Mauli, Abhilash about what a blockchain is and how this is actually going to revolutionize our digital future. So I just want to go through some of the applications which we are doing here, which basically first I want to start with healthcare. Typically in healthcare means life sciences and healthcare. Typically, if you see, there are various components which we, as a common person, we are involved. Something predominantly is our patient records, our consultations with the medical provider or the physician, or the hospitals, our visits to hospitals. So typically, if you see, these are all covered under patient and medical provider identity management. And so far, what we have is whenever we go to a doctor, especially in India and all, our records are either kept in the hospital. Some of the physicians, like dentists and all, keep our some of the records related to our appointments and payments, while we actually have the complete records. So this kind of a situation is really not helpful in future, to look at overall patient care and giving a better quality for patient. So the blockchain, actually implementation of blockchain helps a lot in this area. I will come to that in detail. Another area where we will see is that most of our medical records can be electronically stored and accessed, ensuring the security and privacy. So this is also something which is very important, and most of the advanced developed countries like US, Australia and all are actually doing it. They are actually keeping the electronic health records of the patient. And as you already know, no, we are actually going through a COVID situations, and we are doing a lot of research on the vaccine, right? So that is one typical area where there is a lot of clinical trials and medical research is going on, and in order to ensure that whatever drug they have discovered is able to be applied to some of the initial pilot patients or common men, so that we evaluate the clinical trial results, and then it is available for the common people. So this is something which is very important. So that's one area in healthcare. So all these things, we if it has not been done on a proper blockchain or any other digital enterprise, it's very difficult for us, because there is a lot of challenges involved in this process. So first challenge, there are many challenges. One of the key challenges is interoperability. So basically, what does interoperability mean? Is freely exchanging the healthcare information. For example, the information of the patient available to the insurer, information of the patient available to the hospital, physicians, nurses. So these are currently not available. And if it is available, they can do a better care, right? So blockchain addresses this by accessing all the data using various APIs, and this data formats are standardized in the blockchain. And actually there are certain healthcare protocols, like protocols and standards like HL7. So these can be transmitted electronically to all the stakeholders concerned. So that is one of the key challenges which blockchain is solving. Second one is, we are ready to give all these records, but each patient would like to have the privacy of the data. There is a sensitivity around the patient data, health record data. So this is something called as protected health information. So we just want to see that our record is only available to physician who is treating us, or only to the hospitals who need the specific data for them to treat and give the patient care. So in blockchain, one advantage is that it cannot be tampered. At the same time, it can be encrypted so that the data is secured. So only those people who are stakeholders who need the access to that information as per the regulations will be given the access when implemented on a blockchain. So that is some major solution which blockchain is giving. The third key challenge is the integrity, right? what happens is the data available or the record available with the patient with one hospital, another hospital of the same patient, disparate healthcare systems, or they are all actually not maybe reliable. So having a blockchain implemented for the complete patient record and synchronizing that is possible in blockchain, so that any obsolete or redundant data can be replaced with a single source of the truth. So that are the major challenges which blockchain is actually trying to solve here. So let us go to the electronic records management. So this is something which I have been talking. So what happens is all the data, for example, a patient is going having an MRI scan, right, and the prescription, the doctor is giving the prescription, all his cardiac related data and the lab results, everything is actually encrypted and digitally signed into the blockchain. Okay, so which is called as the health blockchain. And all the health data, right, all the transactions and the health data is stored in what is called as the data lake. It's a big data concept where it is stored as health records. So what happens is these all are stored in a public distributed ledger, something which Abhilash was talking about that. So this particular ledger ensure that the data is available to all the stakeholders concerned. And this transaction here is non-taberable, and it cannot be it is really more private to the patient or the doctor who is treating the patient. On request, if the patient consents, this data can be made available to either a new, if you go for a second opinion to a doctor, or if you want to take some insurance. So these data can be only on the consent of the patient and the doctor if needed. And like Dr. Mauly told, a blockchain, you cannot delete it, you cannot erase it. It can be only continuously updated or so appended, right? So the medical records can be updated into the blockchain, and so that will give you how the patient is responding to the treatment and how he is improving, and based on that, or improving or worsening, based on that the physician can take a decision, okay, on what kind of a treatment has to be given. This also helps, so the blockchain also helps in what is the latest concept called predictive analysis, wherein you can actually go for a prescriptive treatment, like based on the trend which you are seeing in the data, the physicians can actually look at it. This data also can be integrated to clinical trials if there are certain patients where you are trying to do a specific medicines which is under clinical trial. So that is one big advantage of the health record management system. Now let us go to the clinical trials. Let me explain to you this. Here there are many stakeholders, right? It is just not the lab or the company which is doing the clinical trials on their vaccine. There are a lot of stakeholders. There are sponsors who are actually giving the sponsoring financial money for the whole research. There are investigators, there are government investigators, private investigators who are looking into this data. There are patient groups like, diabetes or, cardiac patients who would like to understand more what is happening on the trials. There are regulatory, agencies. There are drug supply agents. For example, the vaccine trial is going on with the, we are already into a phase 3 in India. So when the trial is going on, the drug supply also has to be made ready so that once this is done, the vaccine is available to the public. So there are various stakeholders. So what happens is if this is implemented on a blockchain, what we can do is this. We explained about the smart contract, like, so once the initial trial protocol is set up, you make an agreement with the patients on the smart contracts and on the blockchain, as well as look at various parameters of the thing. So complex flows of this metadata, which is coming through all this clinical data, can be actually stored here. We can also look at data collection, the attribution of the, methods of attribution, consents, dates of the withdrawal of the trials, all this, right? So all this can be actually stored and processed, and it is available for auditing, so because of that, this regulatories are able to come and check and finally give the approval for the clinical trials. Now, typically in a pharma drug supply chain, the medicines which is manufactured from the factory actually is going through the through the shipping agents, through it will go to wholesalers, then to the retailers, and then to the different pharmacies, or all the hospitals, or even to the patients. So what happens is, in any of these chain, anywhere you can have a counterfeit or a fake drug being introduced. Like, for example, you are having a strip of erythromycin, and this can be actually replaced by a fake drug, fake erythromycin, by any of these people in the chain. So if by introducing blockchain here, we can actually regulate the complete medical movement, because these are all time stamped, and all of these are data is entered here. It is verified by the manufacturer. It's any fake drug which can be actually immediately found out, because all of these will have smart contracts and the regulatory agreements which are put on the distributed network. Inventories can be checked, and the valid medicines will finally reach the patient. So all of this data is hashed as a digest, so it can be recorded in the blockchain. Whenever an illegal distributor wants to sell the counterfeit goods, it can be easily detected. The transaction can be immediately detected and alerted about the fraudulent information, and those drugs can be removed from the complete chain. And also, unauthorized persons will not be able to do any drug transaction further. So this is one of the applications of the thing. For one of the other thing, very recent one which I wanted to talk to you, is about the contact tracing. So this contact tracing, or a product recall, or contact tracing, is something which we are using right now in COVID, just to identify if you are finding that one of the person is COVID positive. You are trying to trace the contact of these people with the nearby contact in the near past, so that you are able to reach out to them and see that they are also quarantined and necessary medical attention is taken care. So there is a new piloted one in UK which is called Beep Trace, which is being done by the University of Glasgow. This is this is ensuring that there's a blockchain application which has been developed. So each of the user who is under this test is actually assigned a randomly generated anonymous ID. Okay, and based on this ID, this ID itself is it will be a dynamic ID, so that any identification or a tracking can be avoided. If any of these people are tested positive, their general practitioner or other healthcare provider notes that infection in the blockchain, and whoever this person has been in contact can be traced. There are two methods of actually tracing this. This one is called active mode, and another one is passive mode. Active mode is where individuals are having their Bluetooth on, and a local list is being created. So whenever a confirmed case is there, user A and user B is there, and user B is infected, because his phone has been in a local area, in contact with another person, the overall blockchain tried to send the alert to all the people who are in contact with this infected person, so that they can actually locally match that, and they can reach out for necessary medical attention. Passive mode is where you make use of the GPS tracking of the smartphones, and which is being uploaded on a real-time basis to the blockchain, so that whenever the person is moving, infected person is moving and in contact with the other people, they are able to track this, and based on the blockchain alerts which is coming, they are able to go and alert the people who are in contact, telling that user B, your friend, has been infected, so you need to go for a checkup. Yeah. So this is the contact tracing. So the same thing can be used in automobile also for product recall. So let us say a new type of a car has been launched, and in the first 6 months you find that some of the specific part is actually faulty, or the design is faulty. You can do a product recall by using the blockchain tracing system. Okay, so that is also possible. Now, similar thing you can do for a drug traceability. It cannot be done for small tablets, but there are certain very life-threatening drugs wherein you can actually use that traceability with blockchain. You can find out. In fact, you can find out where exactly the drug is currently there. To that extent, it can be checked up. So that's called as a provenance, which is a big problem in the drug industry here. So that is something which we can do. The hospitals can trace, the manufacturer can trace where the drug is currently here, and it can be actually recalled. So this is some of the examples in the healthcare. Let me go to the real estate. Okay, so real estate, if you really see, let us say you want to buy a land, and you go to an agent, right, to find out whether I wanted a 30 by 40 site, or I wanted a 1 acre land, and I wanted to see there are certain requirements. I want an agricultural land, I want and this is my budget and all that. So what happens is you go identify land with the help of an agent, or directly, or through your friends or contract, and then you go and negotiate with that person, and then you have to do all the basic verifications, like going and checking whether it is a legitimate land, whether it belongs to this seller, and whether there are any loans or any specific legal cases on this land. So you go to all the land specific registration agencies, government agencies, different agencies to find all this out. But with blockchain, we can actually completely digitize the entire real estate, and it is much more easy to do that. So some of the example, some of the reasons, some of the challenges we face here is trust, right? You don't trust a person, that's why you go for and verify all this contracts, or verify about the land documents. So that is one thing which blockchain ensures that it is solved in implementing that in the real thing. Second one is you can completely waive off with the paper transactions which is there. And next one is in case you want to further do transactions on this land, it is possible, and all the records are available. It is available for auditing. Even you can submit it to your income tax, and even the government agencies also are able to see that. So that's what the real estate, we have a considerable implementations which we are seeing on the blockchain. So one of the things which is coming in much importance in land thing is they use smart contracts. Dr. Mowley talked about the smart contracts. They are actually computer programs which is which is programmed to wherein all the on top of a blockchain about what is the various rules, regulations, validations which are to be done, and only the party who are using the smart contracts can access that. So this actually solves the trust factor in the real estate dealings. The agreement will be automatically, if let us say I have to buy a land at 1 lakh rupees, and he is ready to sell at 1.25. He is asking for 1.5 lakhs, and then the negotiation happens, and the whole smart contract, if it is there on the automatically done, it is executed, and once the predefined rules which you are getting into the contract which is written into the contract are met. All the assets, since it is as digitized in the blockchain, we are ownership also traceability can be done. One need not have to go to all these government agencies, because all of these intermediaries can be avoided. Everything can be taken care. All this record keeping, which is a mammoth task in the regular life, can be avoided in blockchain. And also all the related information of the land dealings are recorded in a block in the blockchain, and it is distributed across all the nodes. So that means that it is pretty much real time. You need not have to worry. So as well, sitting here, I can do a complete deal of a land or a building or any other asset just within 5 to 10 minutes, because all the data is available to you, and the entire blockchain network automizes the complete transactions. So that is pretty much on the asset sale. This is particularly the flow. Michael wants to sell his land, so he will be given a token ID with his blockchain address in the blockchain. Similarly, a person who wants to buy, he also is assigned a ID. Based on this ID, when if your agreement for your purchase value or the sale value is agreed upon, the smart contract is verified at each node and of the government, like all the government agencies. It will go and check up everything, whether this is the legal owner of this, whether any court cases are pending on this, whether any loan is pending on this. And once this is satisfied in the blockchain complete network, what happens is the Michael's money, whatever he is depositing into the blockchain payment gateway, that will be deposited to the to Parker, who is actually want to buy, who want to sell. And immediately the land documents are transferred onto the buyer's data. So these all these key challenges of complex land dealings, fraud titles, the cash flow management, the record keeping of the complete land details, all this actually these challenges can be actually avoided with blockchain. So especially in real estate, you will see a lot of usage of smart contracts, automated payments. So completely we can remove the intermediaries in real estate. Let me go to supply chain management area. See, as I talked to you about drug, in a supply chain, complete logistics chain, the key challenge is about provenance. That is, if something goes wrong in the supply chain, we do not know. Let us say you have purchased the item through e-commerce site, and it has been dispatched by the vendor. If something wrong happens, you are not able to track where exactly the item is remaining, right? And if, let us say, it is a defective item which has come, they are able to track up to the manufacturer, up to the vendor, the part which has been defective, which can be done that. So that is possible with the blockchain. Blockchain addresses this complete issue by holding the data throughout the supply chain. It can complete supply chain life cycle. It can also have the details of components, distributors, customers, everything, so that it is possible for tracing. All the payments also can be traced. All the tax related GST or anything can be traced here with blockchain. So highly transparent system. Another thing in supply chain is, if something wrong happens, something any truck or anything which is transporting is actually breaking down, there is a lot of high costs involved in that. So it can be anywhere in procurement. If you don't know the right supply in the procurement, so the procurement has to spend a lot of money to find out where exactly the high quality component is available. Inventory, transportation, then the manpower involved in the whole process, be it in the manufacturing or in the complete supply chain process. And overall, the checking of this component, the cost of the quality, everything is very, very high. In a general, any delay also can create a more cost into that. So blockchain, since there is a real-time tracking of the cost also, we can actually find out where exactly the costs are exceeding and try to analyze that area, and we can try to optimize that particular process in the whole chain. And as I told you, the trust issues related to whether the truck has been delivered, we keep seeing, that, Zomato or, Swiggy or anything, the delivery person has not delivered. He has come there, he has messaged that it is delivered, an item has gone back. It happens in the courier also. So all these are not possible because there is no single authority, and the data is transparent. Is easily possible to prevent any corruption in the logistics area. So I briefly covered about that, and let me go to the final one on the logistics. So key areas where the blockchain is helping in logistics is, a lot of the logistics, actually there is a lot of change of hands, like, supplier to logistics, long haul carrier to the warehouse, from warehouse short haul carrier, just like, Amazon warehouse, the item comes to us. There are local warehouses also, carriers also. So what happens is, we need to actually identify and trace the product. At the same time, you need to have the authentication of that. So at each of these points, right, you can encrypt the data. So if you really see certificate of origin, what is a batch number, processing data, all the barcodes, everything is encrypted into the blockchain. You can have the bill of lading, packing list, or the order number, where it is. So everything can be traced to the line items of the bill of materials, bill of lading, and even the signatures, everything whatever has been done, has been given, can be actually encrypted. Another thing is that if you are having some goods which is being delivered, perishable goods, you can even check or trace the temperature of the freeze van which is carrying in the truck. So overall, with the blockchains, one thing is we have a good transparency of the entire supply chain system, accurate costing information, which helps us to optimize. We can reduce any human error caused by any of these people in the whole process chain. We can ensure that any compliance data, of regulation data which government has imposes on the material, product, or the transport, all this can be avoided. We can ensure that all the trade and tariff policies are also taken care, because these are encrypted into the blockchain, either through smart contracts or down into the core system. Just wanted to talk about some of the questions came here. There was questions on education. I have answered that in the Q&A chat window itself, about how in education blockchain can be used specifically on, just like your patient record, you can actually complete student life cycle itself can be managed in a blockchain, student identification, academic record. So when you go for a job, there is no need for you to provide all your certificates, your degree and your schooling details, your birth certificate, everything is available to the company or the universities where you are going for education. Then there is possibility of verification by the agencies on your academic, and there are also controls which can be done on the student financials. If you want to look at loan systems, whether they are really having from an economic poor economic condition, so that the loan can be given, and all this can be tracked for education, which is not covered here, but there was questions related to that in the QA chat box. So some of the blockchain implementations in India, I have put around 50 to 60% of them are actually in a POC, that is proof of concept area. Something of importance, which is actually, they have all put it as part of their Vision 2020 or Vision 2025 thing. I am as a blockchain as one of their key strategy for their 5-year plans. So that is something which you will see here. If anybody has any questions, I do not have full details of that, but this is something which has been happening in India. And some of them have started being implemented. I'm sure with all this COVID situations, there is going to be a big major revolution happening in the pharma industry on blockchain also. That's something which we hear. So with this, I would like to just transfer this to Asha, who will be talking about banking, financials, and other industries. So over to you, Asha.
Thank you, Meena. Thank you, Meena, for taking over with that slight earlier interruption.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so let me just try sharing my screen again. Right, I hope it is all.
Yes.
If
Yes.
everyone can give a thumbs up. Okay, so we were actually talking about the challenges. So I'm just getting into it. So the challenges that the finance industry is currently facing, right? So And one of the key challenges that is being faced is actually the massive globalization. Now, as our economy is increasingly getting global and getting interconnected as well, financial institutions are facing increased pressure to make cross-border payments. And the expectation by customers is that these cross-border payments must be fast, quick, and seamless, very similar to the P2P payments that is happening in country. Now, another challenge that the corporate and their banking partners face is a lack of global standardization across the banks and across the countries. Now, each and every bank or financial institution in different countries have their own set of rules. For example, the document requirement for KYC would be different from UAE to India to US to Mexico. And also most of these verification documents also require personal information like our passport or income statement and other private information. So financial institutions need to ensure that the data security and the privacy concerns of these customers are met. And wherever money is concerned and internet, we have to be very careful of the hackers and the fraudsters and money laundering. So all these checks and balances means money. And banks and financial institutions are, I cannot say forced, but as we all know, mostly put back that money to the customers, that is to us, as transaction fees. And this results in frustration, rising costs, and wasted money. And all this leads to a very poor customer experience. But all these challenges can be resolved by using blockchain technology. Now, with blockchain technology, as we already heard in the initial status, all information, once it is logged in, transactions are immutable. They are streamlined, and this increases efficiency. It lowers the cost of business. And there is also a traceability so that it prevents hackers from getting in and corrupting your data. And there is an audibility. So all this ensures a very improved customer experience. Now, when we talk about the applications, this leads to a lot of applications in blockchain because of the increased transparency, and it removes the middleman out of this as well. And this immutable nature of blockchain ensures an integrity and privacy. And today I just want to talk about three key applications that the finance sector can use. And the first one that I want to talk about is KYC. Now, KYC is, as you know, KYC policies were first brought into as a measure to establish identity and to control money laundering, terrorist funding, identity fraud, etc. Now, all the banks have specific, as I said earlier, have that specification, their own set of specification for KYC. And we ourselves know if we want to open an account, we give our set of information to one bank, say a bank A. We want to open another account with another bank, we have to give that same set of information to bank B. And over and above, even if we go within the same bank, if we want to take another product, say a loan product, we have to redo this whole process all over again. And this means multiplicity of redundant work. And this is not talking about the administrative efforts, additional administrative efforts of record keeping that these institutions have to go through as well. So assume a case where if this is on the blockchain, In this case, all you need to do is give your set of information once into the blockchain. Now, when we are saying a blockchain, let me just say that this is not independent or separate. All the customers as well as these financial institutions are in participants of this blockchain. So if you are giving your passport or your Aadhaar card, it is actually sitting in the blockchain as an immutable record, which allows for financial institutions to be able to access these records, provided, of course, you have given them permission to access it. So one case would be a bank requests you for the information, you give access to the person access to the bank to take that record, and then that bank can have a consortium where they can interact with the rest of the financial institutions and provide your information. Another blockchain application would be where only you are the sole owner. You do not want the banks to interact with each other to get your information. You just provide the information as and when a bank or a financial institution requests for it. So this allows for seamless and control of your data as you give it to them. So this is a KYC application that is used across banks, and this allows for a single source of truth and the customer ownership of identity, and it avoids and eliminates the repetitive and the redundant work, and also controls the fraudulent activities and money laundering. Now, KYC is used in many countries, but I specifically want to say where it's used here in Dubai economy and Emirates and NBD with NordBlock is using KYC application right now on blockchain. So is Mashrak Bank, DIFC, that is Dubai International Financial Center with NordBlock is also has also implemented, and it is live. With
Asha Chandramouli here.
Yes.
Sorry for interrupting you. You have 10 minutes, Asha. Sorry for it. Please go ahead.
It will take a little bit more. Okay, so let me just. Okay, fine.
Okay, go ahead, Asha. 15 minutes. Fine, please go ahead. Yeah.
I'll just go. Okay, I'll just go very fast. It's not this one. So, see, already from my previous colleagues, you already know the basics of blockchain and how blockchain provides a decentralized platform of trust between entities. So, when you consider this, another financial application for financial sector is cross-border payments. Now, if you take cross-border payments, let us say from UAE to India, right? Let us take from UAE to India. Now, assuming Bank A is UAE and Bank B is India, if we want to talk about interbank transfers, and assume that Bank A does not have an account with Bank B, then they are forced to actually go through a correspondent Bank B, who has an account with a correspondent bank of B, who has an account with bank of the bank we want to send the money to, right? Now here, what happens is, a long process. You have to send a SWIFT message. The correspondent bank makes the necessary entries. They again send to the corresponding systems, automated corresponding systems when changes are made here. So as you can see, there are many intermediary parties over here working together. And this makes the process long. Sometimes the cross-border payments take around more than 5 to 30 days, depending on which location or which country you're in. Now with blockchain, if everything is on blockchain, you are actually removing the men out here. And so one area is completely removed, and you're getting near to real-time payments for cross-country payments. And this is a very good application for cross-border payments. And as I said, near real-time, frictionless transfers, lower transaction fees. And this has already came into effect between Federal Bank India and Lulu Exchange on the Ripple, that is Aarthi Corda network. Same thing is being implemented by Visa for their business-to-business connect. And all this is very latest. It's been implemented and live as of 2019, as of last year, for both of them. Then another thing, the simple thing of insurance, where there is disparate systems and massive and claims and many players over here, like we're talking of brokers, insurance players, the insurers, the customers, lawyers also in some cases. So these insurance companies, which is basically the second financial markets next to bank, have complex processes with increased costs. So with them on the blockchain, you can have a traceable timestamp data, which is mitigating claims fraud. There is reduced turnaround time and elimination of heavy paperwork, because we all know even today, currently, all insurance claims, all insurances are paper heavy, which means administrative work and monitoring and too much long time in KYC compliance, regulatory oversight. So just extending the time where you can get your claims back. But if it is on the blockchain and with smart contracts, you can easily make sure the smart contracts can just trigger your payments when a claim has been reported by a trusted source. So here also you're just removing the middleman right up front. And the current live insurances which are on blockchain used to be AXA Fizzy insurances, but it stopped in 2019 only because Fizzy insurances was for the airline industry for delayed flights, right? But we know that because of the COVID-19 situation, there was a huge impact, and hence, because the market appetite reduced, they had to do away with Fizzy insurance for now. The other is InsureWay, which is between EY and GuardTime, which is basically an insurance for marine industry, for the shipping hull, insurance for the hull, that is the exterior of ships. So that is it, and that is still going strong now. So there are many more user cases for the financial sector. Currently, there are over 400 banks and financial institutions, 77 banks are currently using blockchain technology. And if it was not for the COVID situation, I believe that many more would have been, these numbers would have been much more than this. So now this is the end of financial sector. Let me just quickly move on to the next, which is education. Now, the challenges of education, quickly speaking, we are lifelong learners. So when you reach a certain age, you have a lot of certificates, credentials, diplomas, everything. And you won't even remember when it happened, what time it is, which industry it was. And so, and the control. So this self-sovereignty or the ownership of your own records is something which is very key and required in the education industry. Also with people moving outside, out of countries, and for job prospects, etc., they need verifiable records. And there is no transparency, there has to be a trust. So in order to meet all these challenges of the education industry, the blockchain plays a key role. So if you look at a traditional education system, you can see that it is a network, a lot of players playing with educators, and then for employers and government agencies, all requesting educational information, and you have to get the right one in. And this also means that there is a possibility of people giving fraudulent information as well. It makes difficult for recruiters and assessors and all to verify this information. But with blockchain in the middle, all this, the whole information is transparent, there is collaboration, the information is true and immutable, and allows for a seamless education ecosystem. Some of the applications, and the main applications, as I was saying, was the digital identity, where we can own, where personally, I would like to own and manage my own personal data, my qualifications, my certificates. Don't want to give it to some other entity. And I want to make sure who all receives it, and so that my information is not hacked by someone and someone else takes my information or duplicates my educational records. So this is one user case of the blockchain technology, and a self-sovereign identity solution where we can have our information as well as we are able to share our information to the required participants based on the permissions that we give. And currently, Digitary and Evanim. Digitary is a credential solution. Evanim is an SSI solution provider. Both of them together have issued verifiable portable digital credentials. I mean, they are inviting people to join into their platform. I do not know to what stage this has gone live. The other is academic credential verification. All employers, government agencies, etc. need this. They need to make sure that these documents that we provide them are true and verifiable. Now, whenever this information is, as you all know, it needs to be authenticated. So we need to actually get our documents attested in various centers, which cost money, which costs time, especially when we have deadlines, maybe to join a job or deadlines to join an overseas university. Now, if this is all in a blockchain, this process becomes much easier, as well as even in universities for our transcripts, our lessons, our projects, all of this can be verified and triggered, our certificates triggered within the university by smart contracts, if it is all on a blockchain. Now, BlockCerts is one of these verifiable blockchain solutions. And currently, as of 2019, we have 2 schools which are in India, Pallavan School and Vasantwali School, who have adopted BlockCerts, who are on BlockCerts. And many other institutions like the University of Toronto and Mexico and MIT, who are all using BlockCerts for their online credentialing. Many more user cases in the education sector, but of course the adoption is not all that strong because people are still having the wait and see approach because they want to see how successful it is. But at the same time, the big players like Google with their GAF, that is the Google app education system, and all, they have already started providing online education, as well as Amazon Inspire, that they have already moved into the education publishing, which is a challenge directly to the traditional publishing houses as well as the MOCs. So this is a space which the education sector really needs to go into, considering, and they're looking seriously into it, considering that they're forced into it, you can say, because of the pandemic situation that we are seeing now. So that brings us to the end of the session. Since mine was supposed to be earlier, the next session was supposed to be Mina's, but that has already been covered. So now I will just, would like to just thank all of you. And I'm sorry this had to be quickened up because we were short of time. Over to you.
Yeah, now I request Chandramoli to pick up a few questions and debate on that.
Yeah, sure, Thomas, and thank you very much, Shah. So we also answered a few questions on the chat actually. So we have a few more questions to answer. Maybe Abhilash, you can answer this. Is it possible to customize blockchain as per the customer requirements? Abhilash?
Yes. Hi, Molly. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. Actually, yes, most of the blockchains, including the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Hyperledger family, these softwares can be customized. In fact, in one of the questions, there was a question about which consensus mechanism to be used in Hyperledger. So we answered them that, okay, Hyperledger can choose one of the available consensus mechanisms like Raft or PBFT as far as the choice. So basically, as their consensus mechanism. So that's one example or one way of getting customizations done. In almost all softwares, that is Ethereum or Hyperledger platform or Hyperledger Fabric in specific, allows customizations to a large extent. How to enroll a user, a node into the network, you can customize which consensus to be used. You can define what would be the block size. You can define what is the delay between a block that you can define. So customization of all sorts is possible in blockchain. I hope that I have answered it.
Yeah, thanks, Abhilash. Maybe Meena, you would like to answer this question. What are the challenges, some of the challenges on implementing a blockchain? Because so far we talked about the applications and other things. Can you quickly talk about the challenges of implementation?
Yeah, so blockchain is a nice thing to have, especially we are taking care of the transparency, removing the intermediaries. We are able to have a better traceability, and it is a highly auditable system. Having said that, still maybe we will find solutions in the future, but still we have a lot of challenges in implementing blockchain. So blockchain generally is not implemented end to end kind of, it is normally done just like an agile model where you implement small functionalities and come and make it into a big end to end system. So one of the topmost challenges which we have is on the scalability is basically because it has a consensus mechanism. Each of the nodes has to verify all the transactions being processed. That means it puts a lot of load into the overall nodes, and each of the nodes has to also hold the data, right? Part of the data or data, complete data, which is needed for the transaction. So this is one of the major problem challenges where we early blockchain applications are facing. And most of the cases we may have to take a compromise between only three of the major problem. One is scalability, second one is predominantly the security which we are expecting from the blockchain, and the third one is basically the decentralization, which is the key of the blockchain. So at a time all the three are not possible. So for example, Bitcoin, they have actually looked at decentralization and security as their priority, and they have compromised on the scalability because it's not possible. They have to take care of that. Some of the blockchains like Bigtable or Cassandra or thing, they have actually taken priority on the scalability as well as the security. They have just compromised on the decentralization. The private blockchains, right? Private chains, they have actually compromised on the scalability because they are private people and they are able to look at the size and all. They are able to look at the cost on that. So they have focused on the security as well as the decentralization so that it is beneficial to them. Having said that, this cannot go on, right? We have to have solutions available. So there is a particular process called sharding. Sharding is basically the partitioning, just like you partitioning your computer. This is sharding is a process of partitioning the database, large database, into small database, so that only the data which need to be accessed, the node has to process. So that way, the load on the system is reduced. So this is something which helps in the scalability of the blockchain application. So that's something which we are trying. The new products, like there is something called as SegWit, segregated witness. They actually isolate the complete signature specific transactions. They separate it out and ensure that the transactions are smooth. There are other solutions like TrueBit and all, wherein they ensure they do off-chain kind of manipulations, not manipulation, calculation, so that all the load is not going into the blocks of the nodes of the block. Okay, so that's how. So this is a scalability is one of the biggest problem of challenges of blockchain. The second one is on limited privacy. This is very transparent. So in especially government specific transactions and all, there is a limited privacy, but again, you have to decide where you need to have the data privacy and all, and that is something left to them. The third thing, which is the most one, which is applicable to all of you who are participating here, is, and which is really an opportunity for all of you, is we have limited technical knowledge on blockchain. There are not much. There are a lot of questions which I could see in the Q&A where I can do a blockchain certification. So we need more and more skilled experts on blockchain. So that is currently an issue for us to do the blockchain implementations. Let us say, the other one is on the security concerns. All said and done, it's a secured network. But if 50 or more than 50% of the data which is going into the thing itself is a fraudulent data, blockchain will not be able to detect it, right? So you will have, if somebody is getting a fake from a fake mail ID, information that you have to pay so much of money into this account. So it's like, fake phishing happens from a fake website, or cryptocurrency theft. All this can happen. So it's important that the data which is going into the blockchain and the transactions has to be foolproof. So if that is not there, if more than 50% of the transaction, it actually will fail. So the security concerns has to be taken care in a blockchain. So overall, if you are trying to implement blockchain into some of the questions were there here, into a particular process or end-to-end sector, or a company, or a business. So what you have to take care is predominantly is the technology, and look at what is your data limit. So based on that, you have to size the complete infrastructure. Then you have to look at, it's already complex because of the cryptography and all is done there. So you need to have a rugged infrastructure to handle. So this is one limitation which we need to look at. Another challenge which is important for people like Dr. Mani and
Sorry
all
to
the
intervene.
Labin, is this is the last point, is the implementation cost. So there has to be some compromise on. So you, instead of a big bang methodology, you need to look at it with part by part implementation and ensuring the benefits are being realized. So that is pretty much the limitations and challenges. However, there are solutions.
Okay, since you're running short of time, I'm sorry that we will not be able to take up more questions. So the participants can post their questions on our email ID, info@universitiespress.com. Let me repeat, info@universitiespress.com. Now I invite Madhavi to propose the vote of thanks.
Thanks, Thomas. I think we can all agree that this has been an extremely informative session, very enlightening. We have all learned something new, both those who are currently using this technology and those who may do so in the future. It's been so useful. On behalf of Universities Press, I would like to thank all of our distinguished speakers. They have been so generous with their time, their expertise and their knowledge, and they provided insight into so many areas where this technology can be used. They've totally transformed our understanding of this technology and its uses and its wide-ranging applications. I would also like to thank our fantastic audience for actively engaging with our speakers and making this webinar so interactive. To those of you who have joined us on Zoom, your certificate of participation will reach you soon. Thank you all once again for being a part of this webinar and for making it such a success. We hope to have more such sessions in the future. Until then, stay safe and have a pleasant evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Madhavi.
Thank you, Madhavi.
Thank you. Also, let me wind up this by saying that the authors have written a book on blockchain technology. So it has all the basics, all the applications, whatever have been discussed is covered in detail there. So for more information, you can buy a copy and go through that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.